people. I'm Dax.
And M.
And this is Full His House.
Your Full House fancast.
And today we are covering Season 1, Episode 7, Knock Yourself Out. Originally aired on October 30th, 1987. And the synopsis is, while broadcasting a national fight, Danny lets some information about the fighter's home life slip out that could get him in a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, on the home front, Joey and Jesse worry when Michelle develops a cough. What are our overall thoughts?
I like this episode. I thought this episode was hilarious. And in my head, when I watched it, I was like, you know what? I feel like someone in the writer's room was definitely like watching a boxing match or something at that time and was like, you know what? What if this happened? And then they just kind of ran with it. And it was hilarious.
Yeah, I do wonder if anything similar to this was actually happening in the press during this time, but it was fun. It was definitely, it was a little different, more uplifting than the previous episode that we had, and it was just a cute little day in the household of the Tanner house. So it was cool. So we start with Danny putting Michelle to sleep, and he announces that he is covering a boxing match tonight. He refuses to pick up Michelle to avoid getting spit on, but uses a towel to protect himself, which is just expert parental instincts.
Hey, you do what you gotta do. We just got the dada out of her. We can't slip now.
Exactly. Jesse is downstairs playing guitar, and when Danny walks in, he samples a piece that he's been working on. And he begins singing, and Danny joins in and sings on top of Old Smoky, all covered with snow, because that's the melody that he actually ended up playing, which is super common, especially for guitar players. No offense, y'all. I'm just saying. I mean, it's not the greatest movie in the world, but that Foo Fighters movie where they're living in a mansion to work on an album and Dave Grohl starts playing something and then the other guy, rest in peace, says, yeah, it's called Everlong and he wrote it 20 years ago. Like,
I have not seen that.
You're fine without it. That's cool. Joey walks in and he's playing boxing and is trying to get Jesse to play with him, and Jesse's just not having it. So Joey smacks Jesse upside the head and Jesse does it back. Joey then expresses that he's proud of Danny for making it as a sportscaster and reminisces them in high school and how he had this dream and now he's going from local news to coast. And Danny responds with a thank you and says that one day he won't be the only one who thinks Joey is funny.
You know, this is the first time we've gotten any reference to their friendship. Like any past friendship, period.
Very true. Very true. I was wondering if you would appreciate this scene for that moment because I was like, oh, these two are having a conversation.
I did, because it was like the first time that like they did have like a conversation between the two of them that was like about their friendship. Usually they're talking about anything but that. Like I've said it over and over again. We get a lot of chemistry between Jesse and Joey. There's an insane amount of on-screen chemistry between those two. But there's almost nothing between Danny and Joey. And this is the first time where it's like you feel like they kind of reference each other in a past tense in good terms without Jesse having to be like a part of the conversation in some way.
Right. The girls have gifts for Danny to celebrate his big night. Steph blabs that DJ's gift is a tie tack, and Danny opens Stephanie's gift and she wants him to try it on. He's having a little bit of a hard time, and DJ chimes in with, "Isn't that a great tie tack, Dad?" And Danny says, "God bless you."
I would have been thinking the exact same thing because I could not tell you what that was.
I just thought it was like a little ceramic thing, like, you know, like a little kid project. Like, I didn't know that it had a function.
Right. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, like, is it a coaster? Is it just something I can like put on my desk like that? Like, I probably would have just set it on a desk or something somewhere, but I would have never thought that it was it was for the tie. At least she made it match red and red.
Yeah, no, it was an impressive piece of art.
It was a piece of
Just
art.
it was a piece of art. Just then, Jesse walks in with another sample. He plays a different tune with the same lyrics, and everyone joins in with "This land is your land. This land is my land." Do you know that song?
I do, and I started joining in before they even started singing it because I clocked it almost immediately. I'm like, wait, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are American standards. Well, the only time I've heard "This land is your land," I think it was, is it that silly, probably super racist decom movie, The Luck of the Irish?
I remember that movie. That's hilarious. I haven't thought about it in a while. I don't think that's where it came from.
Oh, no, no, no. It
Um,
definitely didn't come from that, but that's just
yeah,
how I learned about that song. And I had never heard it outside of that movie or this episode. I don't know a lot of people who be going around singing that
you
song in day
know,
and age, but let me know.
I think when I first heard it, it was between one of two things. Either it was during an episode of Veggie Tales, or it was
Mm,
during that Bugs Bill play thing that I had to do in like first or second grade.
yeah, man. But definitely, it's like an American Pie. It's one of the standards for us. I wonder if it's in the public domain. But anyway, Jesse gathers snacks for the girls in an iconic scene. He is running around the kitchen. The girls are yelling for a bunch of different things, and he is stacking them and running around and getting things on his head and in his arms. And it's just hilarious.
I did laugh at this mainly because I'm just like, wait, why do we need so many things for like a segment? Because like I entered this completely thinking that like it was going to be like one segment, right? Like obviously there was more than one by the end of it, but I went into this thinking like, okay, it's going to be like one segment. He said he was going to be covering the fight, but I doubt that the girls are going to be watching the whole fight. But they're like, oh, you know, ice cream. I was like, okay, cool, ice cream. I get that. Snacks, chips. I'm cool. I understand it. Me personally would have never grabbed the bowls because if we're eating ice cream like this, we might as well just eat directly from the jug. It just makes the most sense. Um, but then they said licorice and fruit. And first, who owns black licorice? It's a sin. Why would you own both black and red licorice in the house when nobody? I've never met anybody who prefers black licorice ever. It's just a sin.
Yeah, I don't like licorice at all. You know who else can't stand licorice?
Hmm.
Danielle Fishel. They talk about it on Pod Meets World all the time just to
That
gross her
is
out, and I feel so funny.
hilarious. That's hilarious. I love it though. Because look, I don't mind like red vines, like those, but I don't like black licorice and I don't like Twizzlers. So like it's very specific for me at very least. But it's also because I grew up with those. Like it was very common for me and my siblings to like for my mom to buy like one of those big jugs of them, and because there was five of us, it's something that would last a while, and we would bite off the ends and use them as straws in milkshakes, slushies, pick it. Like we would be using them on a consistent basis. So I kind of grew up on red vines. It's just the black licorice that gets me. Never met anybody who likes black licorice. And then of course they asked for peanut butter, jelly, and bread, which is crazy.
Why you
Just come
want the
down to the
peanut butter,
kitchen,
the jelly, and the bread?
right?
Why you want all of the separate? Like we're gonna do this upstairs? Like nah, 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 nah. That's when they were walling. That's when they were walling, and I was
Look,
like,
I would have stopped at
ladies,
fruit. I would have stopped at fruit. Everything else I can kind of understand. We've got chips, we've got ice cream, we've got licorice. Why do we need fruit? Why do we need bread and peanut butter and jelly? Because then you're going to ask me for the knife and the plates. So I'm not going to pull plates and bowls. It's oh my, he's better than me. He's way
yeah,
better than me because I'm like, nope. Everybody can come down to the kitchen. I'm not doing this. Make your own snacks.
sorry. Jesse goes upstairs with all of his snacks and a six-pack on his head, and the girls announce that they have decided to watch this fight downstairs. And Jesse reacts in a very Jesse way. He does the oh type of thing, and DJ says, "Ooh, it's Uncle Bad Attitude." Um,
I
and
mean,
so
it's the niece with privilege. Like, Jesus, man. Can't we make one decision?
For real, like, okay, like now it's an
we,
attitude because I don't want to bring you the kitchen. At this point, watch the fight in the kitchen.
I mean, at this point, yeah. And he wasn't even complaining about all the snacks you wanted to bring up. He was complaining that you asked him to come all the way upstairs with him and then you wanted to relocate him right back downstairs.
Yeah. He has them help him with the stuff. They take the stuff that they want and go downstairs. And Joey comes out and he says, "Hey, I need some help from the nursery. Let me give you a hand with that." And takes one of the sodas from his head, which is pretty great.
I completely expected that from Joey. I don't see Joey actually picking up the whole thing. I completely expected him to just take one can and walk away.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the boys are in the nursery, and Joey says that he heard Michelle cough. And this somewhat worries Jesse. Jesse picks up the baby, inspects her like she's a product, and says, "Kid, you okay?" And he says, "Babies cough, man. Think of them as tiny little teenagers," which I guess, sure, teenagers talk, teenagers cough and dribble and whatever. Teenagers scare the living out of me. And
For good
if
reason.
babies are if babies are tiny little teenagers, then I guess they're just as scary. But yeah.
I mean, that's also coming from someone who has no children and their only contact with children are the ones they're living with currently. They've got maybe a couple months experience, so I wouldn't take that as like facts.
Yeah, it's not like he knows any teenagers anyway. So what is he really comparing it
No,
to?
the closest thing to a teenager he knows is DJ, and she's not even there yet.
Yeah. Um, the boys bring the baby downstairs, and they ask the girls if they had ever, heard her cough, if the cough sounds weird to them. And Stephanie says the cough sounds like a hairball. And Jesse says, "Babies can't get hairballs, can they?" And at that point, you know what? Babies
I
can do some pretty crazy things. I would be
I
asking,
would have
I
said
wouldn't rule
yes.
anything out.
I would have said yes just to see what happens. I'm surprised Stephanie or somebody didn't say yes just to see what happens because I definitely would have.
Yeah, same. And then we cut to Danny's segment, his awesome segment.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
the the fighter and his agent or coach come in, and the fighter gives him a fake punch, and Danny dodges it pretty expertly, and asks why there is a comeback after 2 years of retirement. And the agent explains that he's hungry and he just wants to be back in the ring and has something to prove because he's the champ and there's pride. And Danny asks, "You sure this doesn't have anything to do with the $6 million paycheck?" And
Yeah, it has everything to do with the $6 million paycheck. I get it. I, I completely get it.
you can get me to do a few things for $6 million. Not
That
anything,
part,
but
that part. Look, the list is vast. That's for sure.
absolutely. Danny asks about their training process, and the Sandman says that it's been total isolation, no phone calls, no outside interaction. And the Sandman gives a little shout out to his wife, gives her a wave and says that he loves her and blows some kisses, which is it is so cute. Like,
Oh, I
you
thought it
know,
was so adorable. I was like, okay, that's actually kind of sweet. And in my head at that moment, I was like, oh, she's probably, back at the house. She's swooning right now. And then Danny.
Danny comes through. He says, "I think it's wonderful you and your wife are still good friends, considering." And this causes a whole dynamic. And the
Yeah.
agent's trying to get in the way, but the fighter is like, "The man said, considering, I want some answers."
I mean, look, when someone says considering, you know that there's some tea behind that.
Exactly. And he did not have the context. If somebody said something like that to me, I would want the information immediately.
A hundred
Jeez.
percent, 100%. But also, to be fair, Danny was given a little bit of a heads up, like, hey, he hasn't seen any social media, TV, hasn't talked to his wife, nothing. He's been in total isolation. Danny just didn't really pick up on the fact that that meant that he may not know what's been all over the news because he hasn't been watching the news.
But you would also assume that if something hit the news, the person that it involves knows about it as well. I think even with isolation, I would have also still assumed that that person knows that they are no longer in a marriage. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we don't know what the timeline is. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, I fault Danny for that because why even bring that up?
Yeah,
But I can
if
understand
anything,
him
like
thinking that
maybe
he
just
knew
play
it.
it off. Like, yeah, I maybe just play it off or something. You're like, oh yeah, I'm sure she would appreciate that. I mean, that's probably what I would have done in that situation, just because with the background knowledge of what did happen and that he may not know about at this point. I probably would have just played along with it because I also don't want to ever be the person that has to deliver that kind of news, especially not to somebody who's amping up to fight. We don't need to do that.
Absolutely. And Danny says, usually when a woman walks out on a man, they don't want to stay friends. And he can't believe that the Sandman has not heard of this news. And the Sandman says, you calling me a liar? And Danny says, why would I choose those as my last words?
Right.
And he says, I thought with the magazines and the movie coming out that you would have known. And then the Sandman's like, she sold the rights. No, Mawson, no.
I mean, Lifetime be on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, if
Look,
I'm also going to take a second to be like, you know what? Queen.
I mean, look, do what you got to do. They said he's been training for how long and he hasn't, he's been in total isolation, hasn't reached out to his wife or nothing, and he's meant to be retired. I, I, I just feel like there's no way it came out of the blue either. Like, there's no way he said he was going to do this comeback and she just stayed silent. Was like, all right, well, in her head, she's like, you do that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and leave. I feel like she probably definitely said something about it. So it couldn't be too big of a surprise. Maybe, like some men, and I've known plenty of them, when a woman says something like that, they just don't believe them.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there was a conversation, a dynamic, a fight before he left. Like, don't do this. You can't. You were retired. You're supposed to be done, and he did it anyway. And he probably just didn't think that it was actually going to happen, which I think is what you're alluding to, and
Yeah.
is totally possible. Which again is probably why Danny assumed he knew what was going on in his own
Again,
life.
I get it, but the coach did drop hints like, yo, he's been in total isolation, so everything that's happening he doesn't know about.
Yeah, it's I mean, ultimately, and we'll get there, it's the agent's fault. But so we cut back to the living room where the family is watching the segment, and Stephanie asks, why was that man crying? And Joey says, because your dad made him so happy. And she says, I don't think so. And then she comments on the $6 million and she says, forget about being a ballerina, which dancers out there are hearing that.
Man.
Let me tell y'all something. Y'all are working too hard. And this is the second time we're going to get into dancers on this podcast. But I always feel so bad. And this is probably going to be a little bit of a side tangent. But y'all have been working since you were born to perfect your ballet moves, to get jobs, to twerk next to a rapper and stuff like that. So I just hope that you all are on Broadway. I hope that you're all getting some really amazing jobs where you can really flex your skills. But what's not happening is y'all ain't getting paid no $6 million for nothing.
Nah. And that, I mean, because with performers at very least, like whether you're talking about ballet or, a rapper or a singer, whoever, when they perform, what they get is usually based on like what the venue brings in or what the management company brings in and whatnot. So it's like more so comes down to like ticket sales and stuff. But I also know
No, they
that
get
in
a
some
flat rate.
cases, yeah,
They get a
that's
flat
what I was
rate
gonna say.
like
That
base.
like in some cases there is like a flat rate. It's like hey, we'll give you this amount for, the season or for the year or whatever. So like again, I don't know exactly how that works, but I do know that there's a couple different ways that it could work. But I do know one thing, and that's that dancers are underpaid. Coming from someone who has almost no rhythm, dancers are completely underpaid. That's hard.
It's ridiculous because it's one of the hardest things you could actually do, and one of
And
the
something that
most
like
picky.
yeah, it's something that can actually like ruin your body too because you bent the wrong way or you did this too many times or whatever. Like you could destroy your body doing something you love. That has to be so difficult.
Yeah, it's insane. Joey makes a comment that maybe the girls shouldn't be watching all of this violence, so DJ suggests that they go watch reruns of the A Team. I have never watched it, but I guess it's a violent show.
It's extremely violent, yeah. Especially for like the late 80s, I guess, like explosions, death, gunfire. Like think like Die Hard but in a TV show.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. But if they were looking for no violence, that's not the way to go.
I mean, 80s, man.
Yeah.
Uh, the boys decide to call the doctor for Michelle, and Joey says, "You're home. You answer your own phone. You any good?" Um, and the
I mean,
doctor's
fair.
asking, you know what? Actually, I think a doctor that lives at home making home calls,
You know what? I
that could be
think
seen one of two ways.
anybody with a kid probably wants a doctor who will take home calls, because the last thing you want is to have to make an appointment and wait a week because your daughter has a cough.
Right. Um, the doctor is asking a bunch of really basic questions. He wants to know how the cough sounds. She can't replicate the cough. And he asks if her nose is running and asks what's coming out of it. And Jesse says, "What's coming out of it? Diet Cola."
I can understand the answer though, because it's like, what do you mean? It's snot. Snot's coming out. Like he's not a parent. He doesn't know exactly what he's meant to be looking for.
Exactly. I'm sure what he meant was what color, but whatever.
I mean, a
um,
very easy way to get somebody confused when they don't know what the hell's going on.
yeah, when you're not regularly on the phone with a doctor, you don't have the automatic answers to these questions and the context and everything. But great moment. So much packed into that one interaction. Um, and the doctor explains that they have to take her temperature via the back way, which I have never done for a baby. Parents out there, if you're really out there doing that, doctors out there, if you're really out there doing that,
You know,
saints.
I'm just if that was a way that my temperature was ever taken, I'm just glad I can't remember it.
I think we're all glad
Yeah,
that we can't remember that. Like that's
yeah.
that's
Like I'm
our
I'm
kids
sure it happened a couple
still
times, but like I don't need to know about it.
are. Is that still a thing? Are there more advanced procedures to taking a kid's temperature, or are we still poking them?
I have no idea, but I would hope that after COVID, that taking temperatures has gotten a lot easier, so you wouldn't have to be like invasive.
Yeah, I mean, one of those little gadgets you can just like put on the forehead.
Exactly,
Um,
but I don't know if it would read a baby or not.
right. It's a good question. Let's see if anybody has that answer for us. Um, So the boys take her temperature. She's normal, which means that that it's a cold, and they just have to continue giving her the medication from last time. Um, the girls announce that Danny will be back on soon, and they also comment on the fact that the way that they're giving her the medicine is not the way Daddy does it. And Michelle, or Jesse, because you can clearly see it in the shot, flicks the medicine right in Joey's face, and he says, "Joey, duck."
Which is something that Joey would have said to Jesse if it was the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Um, They continue trying to feed Michelle and trying to give her the medication. And DJ says, "If I'm ever sick, just dial 911."
Hey, I'm kind of with
Um,
the girl on this one. We've seen them try to change diapers, try to give a bath, now trying to give cough medicine. I would say call 911 too. I might actually live if we do that.
yeah, it was super cute. Just one of her little quip moments.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut back to the TV and we learn that the champ has lost. And Danny says, "I don't think the blame should be placed on anyone specifically." And we have a whole group of reporters um, just swarming him. And one of them asks, "How does it feel to single handedly had ended a man's career?" And Danny says, "Are you talking about the Sandman or my own?" This,
Again, very fair question.
yeah. The Sandman comes in and he wants Danny Tanner, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
Um, Danny decides to go into the dressing room to apologize, and all of the other reporters that were swarming him give an ooh.
Back to that ooh thing.
The Sandman begs for his wife back and fires his agent, basically. During the exchange, we kind of learned that the agent decided to convince him to take this job, even though he knew what was going on with his wife, for the, 15-20% pay cut of $6 million, which,
I can understand it again. I mean, I'm not going to get mad at anybody for their hustle, but we can get mad at them for the manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The agent is so upset about being fired that he goes in to punch Danny, but he hurts his hand because the tie attack has saved the day.
Well, it's lucky it was so heavy that it had to be at the bottom of the tie.
Exactly. And hey, it was a really cool reveal when Danny pulled back his shirt and just kind of
Pointed at
points at
it.
it.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought it was hilarious, especially since, look, she put a lot of power into that ceramic because it didn't even crack.
That's true. Yeah.
It didn't even crack. She put a lot of power into that ceramic.
Strong kid in many ways. So the boys continue trying to give Michelle her meds. Joey tries to make Jesse try it and forces him to like swallow it. It was a weird, like, just to show as an example for Michelle that it tastes good and that she does want it. But I was just like, come on. Did that need to happen?
Oh, you would be surprised. I learned, at least with like my nephews and whatnot, that sometimes, yeah, if you want them to eat it, you have to show them that you would eat it too because they're looking at it like it's crazy. So yeah, that it does actually work, which is crazy. But he played it off pretty well considering it's cough medicine, and cough medicine never tastes good, especially when it's by surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt, yeah, cool, interesting moment.
Hmm.
Um, Jesse then tries to force it and it kind of works. He just kind of keeps giving it to her in her mouth and just waiting for her to just eat it.
Yeah, hey, he went straight for the "you're gonna do as I say, not as I do." So you're gonna eat this. Open your mouth and do it. And surprisingly, she did respond to that after a second.
Well, yeah, she didn't really have many other options at that point. It was already like in her mouth.
You know,
Man, the poor thing.
if TikTok was around at that time, they probably would have tried punching a teddy bear in order to get her to just drink it. Do you remember seeing that TikTok, that trend going around where you would try to give the teddy bear something, the bear would shake its head no, and then you punch the shit out of the teddy bear, and then look at the baby and be like, "Here, eat this," and the baby would just go and eat it because they saw the consequence of the bear.
Um, no, I'm not a TikToker, but I feel like even that would have come across my scrollings.
Oh yeah, it was a trend for a while actually. A lot of parents started using that to try and get their kids to eat certain things. You would have the bear on like a table, and then the baby at the high chair, and they would try to feed the teddy bear. They'd shake the bear's head no, and then they would punch the hell out of the bear. And then they would try it again, but this time with the baby, and the baby would just like eyes wide open, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, I'll eat it." Like straight fear. It was crazy.
That ain't even right, but
It was so weird.
it
It,
ain't right.
I wasn't sure how to take it. I'm still not sure how to take it. All I know is that I wouldn't have wanted to be terrified into eating food I didn't want to eat. I think that that's an okay choice for a baby to make if they don't want to eat the carrots, but they're willing to eat the sweet potatoes. I don't see why that's a bad thing.
Man, people are creative. Danny comes back and he is defeated. Joey comes in and tells him that Michelle is going to be fine, and Danny immediately runs in to find Jesse nursing Michelle back to health. He takes Michelle from Jesse, and Jesse has like this look on his face. I don't know if you noticed it.
No.
There's like this moment where he's just looking up at Danny take the baby from his hands. Um,
Oh, actually, I do. It was almost like disappointment, almost like I
yeah,
was enjoying myself, but I guess you can take her type of thing.
yeah, and it was right after he said "Daddy's home," and it's just like, yeah, the real guy's here.
Yeah, I think he's starting to get his I guess his paternal instinct because he's a man, but I don't know if you would use maternal and as like a both thing. But no, his parental instincts kind of have been kicking in over the last couple episodes, and you can see that he's like actively getting closer and closer with Michelle. And because she's so young, he's going to feel a little bit attached, especially in like a "that's my daughter" type of way, despite it being his niece. but it's still kind of a very similar like dynamic between an uncle and a niece and a father and a daughter.
It's definitely the seeds of what will soon become the Michelle and Jesse show.
Love that. Can't wait for it.
I mean, there are some, yeah, there's a lot of that, but it's very sweet. Um, and so Danny suggests some steps that they can take since she is sick, and the boys had done everything, which he's very happy with. And in the kitchen, Danny thanks the boys for everything that they had done that night. And he says that when he heard Michelle was sick, it put everything back into perspective, and he realized that what he really cares about are his friends and his family. But then Joey reminds him about the nightmare interview and asks for a pep talk.
I love that after one of Joey's pep talks, we're like, you know what? He's pretty good at this. Could you do another one?
Exactly. And Jesse says, "A sick baby and a pep talk? What am I, a saint?" And Joey kind of takes the role there. He says, "The pep is welling up. I feel it coming out, and pep." And he says, "Look, you had a rough night. There are always bumps along the way. Just remember to learn from the bumps and be prepared better next time because there will always be other opportunities."
Then be facts.
It was another one of those moments where Joey is giving us a little bit of a higher wisdom than you would normally expect from him, and that just makes it hit that much harder.
You know, I like one, it makes it hit that much harder, but two, it also it adds more depth to him as a character because you always see this kind of like surface representative of him. You know, the always making you laugh, never taking things very seriously type of thing. So it is very nice to see that switch because it lets you know that there's way more to his character than what we're seeing, but this is what he prefers for himself. It makes him happy. Making other people laugh makes him happy, even if it's, you know, laughing because they think he's embarrassing or because he's acting ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, he's just great at that. Um he also mentions that the reason why it went down the way that it went down is because he cares about people and people trust him and they know that he's a good guy. And I thought that was very sweet as well because the Sandman did mention that he appreciated that somebody was willing to tell him the truth about the situation, even if it was Danny doing it by accident.
I mean, low key, it's probably what saved his job realistically. If the fighter hadn't been like, you know what, I appreciate him for doing it, then it could have gone way south. If the fighter had, you know, taken it as a grudge, it probably would have ruined his career because they kept saying like, you know, the guy is a champ. He's, you know, he basically like a big name. Like everybody knows about this guy, and they've been waiting for him to come out of retirement. This is such a big, you know, fight and whatnot. So if he would have blamed Danny for his loss, I think it would have been worse because he didn't blame Danny for the loss. Instead, he blamed his coach. I think that everything kind of solved itself.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that it's actually required for interviewers to actually know what's going on so they're not asking the same questions
Yeah,
they've been
isn't there
answering all
usually like
week.
a
But
prep period where like the coach comes up and is like, "Hey, these are the things you're allowed to ask and things you're not allowed to ask," type of thing? Like, aren't there usually like a prep period?
maybe this was the reason why we have those now.
Could have very well been, you know, and now it does make me wonder: did somebody else actually do something even adjacent to that to then create that role?
I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, if you look up crazy interviews from back in the day,
Oh yeah,
it's a little wild. So definitely need to draw that boundary. And the show concludes with Danny saying that his favorite part was when he tried to claim there was no one to blame and how awful that was. And I thought that was actually my favorite part. But
look, we love a self-aware king. That's all. We love a self-aware king. He understood that he played a part in it, despite him not being fully at fault.
exactly, we do love the self awareness of Danny Tanner. But yeah, that is pretty much the show. Um, yeah, what was our not in my house moment?
The snacks. Having Jesse pull all those snacks up and then rerouting him to a completely different room because you've changed your mind on where you want to watch it would never happen. Never, not at all. I would be lucky to have somebody else grabbing my snacks and not just being told to go to the kitchen myself and get it, and then while I'm in there, being told to grab, popcorn or something like that. But like the peanut butter, the jelly, the bread, the licorice, the fruit, for some reason, yeah, not at all.
Yeah, my roommate says he has this friend who she's what he describes as rude, but I think it's totally fair. Upon like if you were to visit them, she'll be like, "Oh, hey, welcome to my home. Can you go get me a beer?" Like
Oh,
in her own
okay.
home. It's like,
That's
yeah, like we're not
that's something.
it's
It's a
doing the
choice.
favor of getting someone else or doing the thing where it's like, "Oh my god, there's something on you." And then someone like gets up like, "What's going on?" "Oh, nothing, but while you're up, can you go get me something?"
Exactly. That, yeah, yeah.
But I would agree that would probably also be my not in my house moment. Do we have a get the violins moment?
Ooh. I guess we can give Joey it. We can give it to Joey and his pep talks. That's kind of the closest thing we got to a get the violins moment. But oh, you know what? No, I changed my mind. I'm gonna go with the look that Jesse gave when he had to give Michelle back.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that one. It
Yeah,
was, or yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And what was our full stop moment?
Ooh, did we have a full stop moment? Um, I guess the closest thing would be the hairballs question. But just because I was so taken back by the question, not because it was, inappropriate or anything, but just because like I did actually pause it to like think about that for a second. I was like, what, why would you ask if a kid could have hairballs? I mean, it's just yeah, that would be my full stop moment just out of pure confusion.
Yeah, I'm actually having a hard time narrowing one down too. So, well, yeah, let's go with that.
I
That
think
which
it's
is
the closest
good,
thing we
which is
got.
good. That
Yeah.
means that this show's aging well, or at least this episode is aging well. We don't know
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
show,
Hey,
but
we are progressively getting a lot better because it's becoming harder to find those full stop moments, which is good.
right. And then finally, a dad like Danny. Did he put any parental practices that we really would like to see?
You know what? I'm gonna go with the moment when he was interviewing the fighter, and he chose to take like a solid 2 minutes to say that his daughter got him the tie, and his other daughter made the tie clip. Like, I'm gonna say that specifically, just because I know that my mom would definitely like show off some of the things that I got, but if it wasn't something that like she would actually wear or something that was like the tie pin, it would never leave the house. It would be sitting somewhere inside or in like a mommy box.
Oh, but I like the idea of a mommy box. But yeah, no, I agree. I love that he wore it.
Yes.
I love that he showed it off.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love that he made it a family moment for him to have that. Like it was nice, yeah. But
I mean,
I do want to give some dad credits to Jesse and Joey just with their
yes.
diligence around taking care of Michelle. um, but it is interesting that I guess because they are family and it is his sister's daughter, but it's just interesting that we don't see too much of like Joey really loving on Michelle. You know what I mean?
I would have expected Joey to at least be like super close to Stephanie, just because like with his personality, she would be the one to like enjoy all the impressions and the jokes and the weird stories and whatnot. Like, even in the past when we got like the past the torch story between the three guys,
Right.
like there's little moments like that where you can see that there's definitely at least potential for like a Michelle Jesse thing with Joey and Stephanie. And then obviously we have DJ and Danny who get along really well. I just There is opportunities for more, and I wish they would have, I guess, capitalized on that more, because so far it feels like Joey and Jesse have a connection, Jesse and Michelle have a connection, Danny and DJ have their connection, but we still have like Stephanie, who kind of, you know, drifts from place to place but doesn't really have a specific like connection with anybody so far. She just, you know, she's very much the younger sister. She wants to be with her older sister, and she's cool with that being her personality right now. I'm completely fine with that. But there was definitely potential there for a Stephanie Joey trio, especially with just the way that they could bounce off of each other. We saw that with the episode where Stephanie had to go to school for the first time, go to kindergarten, and we saw them kind of bouncing off of each other when she tried to play sick. Like those little moments would be just as hilarious.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a really good point. That would be interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see, like, also what you're saying, a little bit more of Danny and Stephanie. I'm sorry, Joey and Stephanie. Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know what, Stephanie with anybody.
Really, yeah,
Um,
because she
and she
she she
gets,
really is like Joey in a sense where she just kind of drifts from scene to scene. You don't like necessarily miss her if like in a sense of like when she's there, they make it very known that she's there. She gets a really good one liner or something, but she does just kind of drift from scene to scene, just like Joey does.
yeah, yeah. And we will see. I mean, everybody's going to get so much development. These girls are going to grow. We're going to see a lot. But yeah, as of right now, and it could just be what a 5-year-old could handle, even though she is absolutely amazing
Fair.
at what she does. But it could just be like, you know, it could be a little bit much to have her like go through a bunch of different things or a whole arc. But that's what Joey's doing. He's kind of just also floating around as well. So it is an
Mm-hmm.
interesting choice to kind of see her just bouncing around. Um, any other final thoughts on this episode before we wrap?
I This one was definitely a better episode than the last one. I
Mhm.
found this one to be hysterical, mainly because of the Danny interview bits. Like he really made this episode for me. Danny really made this episode for me.
It was a great one for him. He was hilarious. The situation was hilarious. And, you know, again, we got another just average day in the Tanner household, and it was a great one. I do like this one. I think it is funny. Um, yeah, had some great moments.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I guess we can send out.
All right. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Please remember to like, subscribe, follow all the things, and stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, this is Dax.
And M reminding you
To lock your doors.